everyone. It's Mark Zielinski. Welcome to a special Clash of Kings 2025 episode here on MUP. And I have Wiki Dave with you this morning. How's it going, Dave?
It's all right. It's nearly midnight on a Sunday for me. So this is good to stay up late and be really tired for work just because I can talk about Kings of War. So
there you go. Well, it's very early in the morning here, a little after 6 a.m. So what we do for our international conversations.
Yeah. Good old time zones.
Absolutely. Well, and it's what we do for the big giant cock release here. So 2025 is here. So are you excited, Dave?
I'm very. It's our first one since doing the wiki, so this is all new information and how it changes existing lore and all that. It's just fun to kind of dissect and overanalyze and overthink and make it into something it probably wasn't intended to be. But that's the joys of nerd thinking about things.
There you go. It's almost like being a sports commentator. You know, we gotta read too much into it. So
exactly.
Gonna fill the time, but very, very good. So I was very interested. Why don't we do some overall impressions, and then we'll kind of dive in a little bit. So there will be a spoiler or two dropped here, dear listener, but our goal is to excite you. Hopefully you'll be picking up the book. So we're not going to go through all of it word for word and stuff like that. We've got to leave some juicy cliffhangers for you. So please understand as we go through our conversation here, but we want to definitely give you a great flavor for what is going on. So, and I use that word intentionally because that has been the word that has been used for this book repeatedly. Flavor, and then more flavor.
And it's just our interpretation of what they've written as well. And everyone's got a different interpretation when they read something. So this is how we see it. And the point of this is for you to read it and see if you have got the same view or a different view. So always go into this with that mindset of like, this is how we see it. Do you see it the same way? You should always question it.
There you go. See, that leads to great conversations. And to me, that's a sign of some good writing. So it leaves it open so you can chat. So the lore from last year was really outstanding. And so, this year, I think there's some great stuff in there as well. So, but overall impressions, the one thing that caught me out was, there's some cutting and pasting here. So,
yeah, I thought that as well. And then I started to look through it. And yes, there's copy and pasting, but little additions within those copy and pasting. Not more so in the Force of the Abyss stuff. That's a lot of the stuff from the Green Book. But they've spliced in some new stuff here and there. And a few unexpected things that were spliced in, which could mean more than they actually mean. But it's quite interesting. But with the Trident Realms, that is more of a rewrite. And there's more juicier stuff in the Trident Realm side of it than the Force of the Abyss, in my opinion, anyway.
Well, there you go. See, and Dave, you're the person that can suss that out almost immediately. So nobody's got the Kings of lore down like you. So
I'm pretty sure Matt does, though. Hopefully Matt does. Matt Gilbert, that is.
We'll have to facilitate that challenge someday in the past. We'll have to put together. We can have Tom Robinson do a pub quiz for the two of you. That would be outstanding. That's a great idea.
I do have some weak spots, and I don't want to say them because that may just set me up for disaster. So.
There you go. Fantastic. All right. Well, why don't we go ahead and start at the beginning, Dave? You can help walk us through the lore in the Clash of Kings 2025 book.
All right. So we're going to start with the Forces of the Abyss. Again, this is just my interpretation of it. I suggest everyone get the book themselves and read through it. So a lot of the stuff there is stuff from the Green Book. So it goes over all the different layers of the Abyss, from 7th to the 1st. But what they've added is in the 6th circle, they've mentioned the Nagari. That's where they're based in the 6th level. So the 7 levels, that right at the bottom is where all the wicked ones are kind of are stored, you could say, or based. And so the 6th level is where the Nagari are. So that's the new snake. What do you call them? It's kind of snake, kind of humanoids.
Yes. Yeah, basically it. I mean, they're really on chariot bases. So, can you call them cav? I don't think you can. I think they get a little unique creature in my book as far as that goes. So they're a new big bad.
Yeah, it doesn't mention where they come from. They're just like the Nagari is there, so they are based in this sixth circle. The Abyssal Berserkers. So they're basically the evolution of Abyssal Champions. So you kind of go Abyssal Champions, and this is in the fifth circle. So the one above the Nagari's circle. So they look like just evolved forms of champions that they pretty much just became berserkers. They're not. It doesn't really mention. Yeah, it doesn't mention that they are like a different species. They're basically just a warped version of the Abyssal Champions, which is quite interesting. They've got regenerative powers, which is interesting. But going through it, it looks like a lot of the stuff has been revised, you could say, because some of the spelling has changed, such as in the background they mentioned the 26 Abyssal Lords, but they always use the number 26, but they've now typed it out 26. So someone's actually gone through into, except for one paragraph which I think they just missed. Copy and pasting failed them on that one. But yeah, it looks like they've actually reviewed it. So that also means that this lore, even though it's from the Green Book, is still valid. So they've reviewed it. So that's and also a reassurance that they haven't changed any of this. All this is still valid. Like the Mother of Vampires, Akushanarari, I can't really say her name, who's a wicked one, who's the Mother of Vampires. So that looks like it's still canon. So that's some of the, even though it is copy and pasted, it also reassurance that this is still canon, which is interesting. So they haven't changed too much of that. Going through it of other changes, they've actually changed the origins of the Ifrits. Do you remember what the Ifrits are, Mark?
I know what they are because they're in my army, so I know more as a tabletop piece. So
yes, so it looks like there's a phrase now. I'm not sure if they added that. This isn't in the Green Book, but it is here. So I don't know when they added it. I'm assuming they added it with this book. And now they're saying it's a hellish offshoot of the Dingy, which are the from the Empire of the Dust. Those that the set kind of wolf head kind of units, because they're actually spirits which are kind of formulated to become the Dingy. So they're actually just a hellish offshoot of that. So it's a weird connection that they've made there, because they're not actually. I guess originally from the Abyss, they're kind of being brought down into the Abyss to become Ifrits. So that was interesting that they added that. Which is, don't know why, but there is a lot of this book does go into the southern part of our known map as well. So all the way down to the southern rift. This one of the actual stories in the book takes place right at the bottom of our known map. Of the Southern Rift, so it's interesting in doing a lot more work, work of establishing, the races in that area as well, and the connections with everything. So that's interesting. I
think that's interesting because I believe they're going to be expanding the map, so I think they're going to keep pushing it out. So
well, keep in mind what we're only just seeing here is the Northern Hemisphere. We're not even in the middle yet. So, because if you look at the map, there's an arrow pointing down saying this way to the equator. So we're only seeing the top, northern hemisphere of the map at the moment. So keep in mind there's a lot we don't know. And it mentions later in the book about a growing threat in the east that we don't know about, which is not the Abyss. It's not anything we know, but it's happening in the east, which I think is coming with 4th edition, in my opinion. But we'll just leave that there.
That's all part of the reading into it. So
yeah, it's all part of the over-analyzing the reading into it. But then once you get past the talking about the different circles and so forth, what's interesting is what's not there. It doesn't mention the Riftforged orcs in it at all, which originated, a couple of Clash of Kings ago, and I would have thought they would have put that stuff in here. At least a line or two, but they haven't incorporated that into it, which is which is interesting because I would have thought that would have been a bigger part of their history now. And also about time, how time works. I mean, they do hint at it, but time works differently in the Abyss. So the lower you go, the slower time goes. So that's why when Harpy's Rift kind of opened up, and then the Riftforged Orcs suddenly appeared only a few years later, it's because when Harpy's Rift opened up, time went very, very slow. So it was like hundreds of years that they used the energies from Harpy's Rift to create the Riftforged Orcs and then release them on top to the mortal world. So it's interesting they didn't mention any of that in this bit. But
hi, this is Alessio Cavatore, and you're listening to the Mantic Universe podcast. So many universes, so little time.
This is Ronnie Renton, and you are listening to the Mantic Universe podcast.
But yeah, that's what I've got so far with that. What's your thoughts there, Mark?
Well, I mean, the one big piece you get as you're going through this is how's Oskin still alive? So, but there's your time thing. If stuff's moving so slow at the bottom of the Abyss, of the Great Rent there, that's how it can happen. So,
well, as far slow or fast, if time's going, there's like if it's 100 years passing.
Well, it depends on where you're at. Are you at the bottom or are you at the top?
Yeah. So if you're at the bottom, like thousands of years can pass, and only like a year passes on the surface. Is that going slow or going faster?
I think it's the other way around. So
I think it's the other way around.
Thousands of years can pass on the top. Well, just a few minutes can pass down below.
No, other way around. Other way around.
Other way around?
So it's only a few minutes up top and then hundreds of years down below.
Okay.
That way. So basically, Oskin has been like, even though he's been down there for like 3,000 years, in his reality, it's like 10,000 or something like that, something ridiculous. So he's been stewing for a while. And that's why the Forces of Abyss can return quite quickly. So you had the edge of the Abyss with the flooding and them getting their butts kicked. So you'd think they would go away for a while, but then they come back. And it's because they have a lot more time than the surface world has to recover from those battles. So that's why they keep on returning. A bit of a plot device just to keep them coming back for more. But yeah, it's interesting they didn't mention any of that. Or they do kind of hint at it. They've always hinted at it, but yeah, I'm surprised they didn't make that a little bit more definitive. But yeah, that's one bit of the background there.
Oh, very, very cool. So that's the background story that's for each individual army, because the two armies that are included in the Clash of Kings 2025 is an update for the Abyss, which we have some new models coming for, and then the Trident Realm, which we got our Frog Vengeance packs earlier in the year. So with that frog on frog action, as Ronnie likes to say.
Yeah. So yeah, they have added stuff that was already there. So some more copy and pasting, which I that sounds like a bad thing, but it's a good thing because it means they're reaffirming that canon. They're like saying this is still valid. This is still what's going on. They have changed some of the phrasing with it as well. For instance, the placoderms. Is that how you say it? Placoderms? I
say placoderms. So
placoderms.
That's me.
That's well, the placoderms. We'll call them placoderms because it sounds funnier. They've removed that they're taller than the average man. So they've removed that phrasing because they always used to, everyone interpret them to be taller than men. But they've actually removed that now. So it's interesting I know it's a silly kind of nitpicky kind of thing, but it's interesting because I've always thought them as bigger, but they've kind of now said they're not. They're kind of just normal, which is interesting. They've done a bit of background for now pond wardens. So the new toad humanoids, which were in, I believe they're in League of Infamy. I think they were in League of Infamy originally, but now they're actually on the Kings of War table. They've actually done a bit of background for them. So a few kind of notes that I'm actually just bringing up. There we go. So a few notes for them. They live in lairs. They could be related to dwarfs. So it's kind of suggested that Dark Chiron, one of the wicked ones who created Pond Wardens, used dwarfs to kind of model these guys after. So that's quite interesting as well. And also the first named pond warden is actually in this book as well, called Anuran. Anuran? Anuran. So that's cool. That's the first time we've had a pond warden actually named, which is in canon, which is pretty cool. But yeah, it goes over, what pond wardens are. They seem to be more traditional. They pass down their armor through the generations as well. So they pass their armor to their kids, and it's very they've got family, they've got tradition. It kind of hints at them being a very structured kind of species, but also isolated from the rest of the Trident realm. So still part of the Trident realm. They're kind of just like on the side doing their own thing, but they will come and help, and they're pretty vicious warriors as well. Sorry, just getting a drink. Sorry.
I'll make a quick note where we at recording wise. Okay, 16:45. I'm just gonna write that down for Fred.
Sorry, mate. I was talking so much into a drink. Feel free to jump in whenever. So I'm just kind of ranting a bit.
I will jump in as I see opportunities there. So
cool. All right. Next up, we have the Trident Kings. Now, the Trident Kings probably has the most meaty lore drops in the book. We find out what all 3 Trident Realm names are, because there's only 3 of them. I wanted to attempt to pronounce them. I'm going to butcher it. Mark, do you have them written down? Because I'm going to butcher the pronunciation.
Nope, go for it. I didn't even try. So my head just goes blah, blah, blah.
All right, I'm going to post it in the chat for you. See, it's just so you know what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
So we got Scythos. So Sythos. Scythoth. And then we've got Merricu. So Myrroq. And then, God, Lithiol. So that's ILYTH'UL. Was that a hyphen or apostrophe? I don't know.
It looks like an apostrophe. I wonder how they come up with these names. So
I don't know. I think they just like drink some water and then try and say a name, and then they just write down how that sounds.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So Scythos is the strength of the maelstrom. And Mykorth is the heart of the sea, and Ethereal is the light of hope. Sorry. And so they're the Trident Kings for all 3 of the major realms of the Trident realms, and it looks like they've been the kings for a very, very, very long time. It sounds like they get reincarnated when they die, and just they constantly are the same being, and they do change their appearance, and they wear what they call the masks of Medusa. And Medusa, I thought she was a shining one, but they kind of imply that she is something else that we haven't seen before. So not a star god, she could be a star god, but I don't think she is. She's not a shining one. She's not a Celestian. She's not a wicked one. She's something else with power, with a lot of power. So what we learned from the Trident Kings, and one of the stories goes into this as well. It looks like they're immortal, or the power of Medusa is keeping them alive. Now, my theory is because Mantic is based in Britain, and these guys are kind of mysterious and live forever and change their appearance every time they get reincarnated. I think they're Gallifreyan. They must be from Doctor Who. That's my only kind of like decision, like only thing I can make sense of that. Because it mentions time and space in it as well. So I'm pretty sure they're Gallifreyan. They got to be Gallifreyan.
Oh, there you go. Well, that's a question for Matt. Battery got the concept from that. So, but
he stole it from Doctor Who. Yeah.
Do you think Medusa's still around somewhere? I mean,
well, yes.
Maybe where?
I think she's in the deep. So because basically,
I think she's in the deep. Okay.
I think she's trapped in the deep, or she kind of shoved down the deep, and so that's where all the power is. So the whole point of the story that they go over. So we're kind of skipping ahead, but the whole story. What was it called? The whole story of Clash of Kings 2025 is the Deep Water Crusade. So the forces of Oscan, the Wicked One, is trying to get out of the Abyss. And basically, he's trying to reforge the axe, which caused the Abyss, his massive black axe. And the last piece that he needs is in the deep. So the Trident Realms are protecting the shard from the forces of the Abyss. That's basically the whole point of why they exist. They've been tasked to protect this one shard, because once Oskin gets Oskin? O-S-K-N.
I say Oskin, so
Oskin.
That's always been my pronunciation.
Well, basically, once he gets the shard, he can reforge the axe and get out of the Abyss and cause mayhem. It's not 100% clear what stop. Like, there must be like a barrier that the Shining Ones have put up that only the axe can destroy, that will release them into the world. So that's why the Wicked Ones use avatars and use all that on the mortal realms, because they can't leave the Abyss. They create everything in the Abyss, then unleash it on the mortal realm, but they can't actually leave themselves. And it's kind of implied that this axe will help them escape. So the whole story is about the forces of the Abyss trying to get this last shard so they can forge the axe and get out. So yeah, that's what the whole point of the story for 2025 is about. But that's skipping ahead. But basically, the Trident Realms has a lot of good new lore in it, and I do suggest, if you're a fan of the Trident Realms, definitely get this. You're pretty much we're going to get it anyway, but I would say from a lore point of view, you'll get more Trident Realm lore than you'll do with Forces of the Abyss, in my opinion, anyway.
Sorry, Clem. Do you think Ben Stoddard got involved a little bit with the Trident Realm lore, since he wrote one of the novels already that focused on Trident Realm? Or I didn't ask, so yeah.
He's not credited, so I assume he didn't, because normally they're pretty good at crediting it. I hope he had some kind of input, but I don't think so. There's not a lot of indications of any of it tied in with the books, unfortunately. Which I didn't see any anyway. But no, I don't think Ben had too much influence over it. But I could be wrong. He works as a consultant, I guess.
Absolutely. So speaking of which, that piece, and I'm jumping to the end. Maybe I'll save that for the end, but I already brought it up. Everybody get mad at me.
We'll jump around. We'll make it. We'll go.
We're jumping around a little bit. So, yeah. But that last shard, is it a dagger or is it a shard? Because it's got to go in the axe. So how big is it? I kept having this, little teeny piece versus a dagger. So I wasn't. What did you interpret that as at the end of the day?
They do say it was doubles as Oskin's dagger, but they also call it a shard. So maybe it's a shard that can be a dagger. Like, if the shard's big enough, you can stab anything with a shard. So I mean, a shard could be a dagger. I mean, it's the same thing. So because basically what they implied is that when what was the Shining One's name? Dominate Vader? Domivar.
I say Domivator. Yeah, that's kind of my.
Domivator.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Hopefully, all this makes sense. So when he slammed basically the Oskin's black axe on the ground and made the Abyss, the axe basically shattered and kind of spread everywhere. So the forces of the Abyss reforged all those fragments, and the last fragment they have is that one. And so I think the shard is a dagger at the same time. It's just the shard that he stabbed things with. I'm assuming. I think that's the point.
There you go. Well, going back to the beginning of the story kind of in the book starts with them gathering the pieces of the axe. I mean, it almost sounds like at a subatomic level. I mean, it's dust like spread everywhere. It's like, how do you find that? So
yeah, and it's quite interesting when you read what they kind of gathered as well, because they gathered one of the dwarf boons. So the 27, I think it's 27 missing boons that Garrick Hammerhand.
And I'm Mark Zielinski.
And I'm Wiki Dave.
The Mantic Universe Podcast. So much universe, so little time.
Heavy Hand, that's it. Garrick Heavy Hand is basically he's tasked with finding all these boons, and one of the boons is now forged into the Lord of Lies' axe. So does that mean Garrick has to take on the Lord of Lies to find that boon in order for him to fulfill his oath? So that's interesting, because I don't think he's going to get that axe anytime soon. Like it's gonna be a bit of a challenge for him, unless he wants to mission down into the abyss, which has happened before. It happened in Dungeon Saga, where people just went down to the abyss. But yeah, it's quite interesting that they mentioned that. So it's also them writing one of the boons into the story also means they haven't forgotten about the boons as well, because the dwarven boons that I'm referring to, which is basically Garrick Heavy Hand's story. The fact that they're still acknowledging that is still a thing in the world is good, because it means they haven't forgotten about that they've got hopefully got a plan for finding all those boons eventually. Now, Ben will definitely be involved in that, because he's the dwarf guy. Hopefully he's aware that one of the boons is in the axe now, because I don't know how he's going to figure out how Garrick's going to get that boon.
Well, Ben's a listener of the show, so he just found out. So if he didn't know before, and the good side is, good luck, Ben. And the good side is Ben's handling the dwarves and the Trident Realm, so that works out great.
Oh yeah, that's going to be interesting. So basically, the story was the forces of the Abyss were trying to get the shard, and so what they did is attacked everywhere in order to kind of like spread out the forces of the Trident Realm so they could to get in there. So they attacked as far south as the Southern Rift, and as we've learned in this book as well, the openings to the Abyss started opening up everywhere during the Harpy's Rift. So during the Harpy's Rift event, now we've got all these openings to the Abyss everywhere. So not just like the big scar that we see on the map, it's actually now underwater, it's down south, it's everywhere. So the Abyss is basically attacking everyone. So after Harpy's Rift, after that problem was solved, everyone thought everything was all cool and chill. So they went back to the normal life. But underwater, the Trident Realms have been fighting the Abyss the entire time, as we find out. Because they've basically just been at war with them, for years. I don't know how many years it's been since Harpy's Rift and this story. They don't actually state it. All we know is that it occurs after it, and most likely after the Storm of the Shires as well. So I think that's 3,668 year. So after that point. So yeah, that's another thing that is sometimes confusing is time. Like how long after Harpy's Rift did this actually occur? Not quite sure. I'm assuming it's around about like a couple of years, like 3 or 4 years, maybe 2 years, I don't know. But all we know is the Trident Realms have just been at war with the forces of Abyss for years now, and this is this is like the end of it, or maybe not the end of it, but this is one of the big conflicts of the war.
Well, to me, that was the biggest part of the book and the story is the Abyss is opening up everywhere. So yeah. That was my biggest wow moment as I was going through it, because to me that is a huge shift for a couple of reasons. Number one, you always have that how can this army be fighting that army kind of explanation. So they took care of that, but that also really opened up the world. I mean, to one of the biggest parts of it was, well, the Abyss was just there. That was the way it got in and out. Now it's like anywhere, and they've got these portal stones and all sorts of stuff, which that has been mentioned in the novels before, how they kind of pop in and out of all over the place. But very, very interesting. The other neat thing that my simplistic brain here jumps in, it's like, oh, the Abyss can breathe underwater. Cool. So because they're not of this world, so who knows if they even have lungs. So it was nice to where they could do that battling under the water, So
yeah, well, they got noses. So, I mean, what do they use their noses for then?
There you go. See, those are the things that you dive into, Dave. So
it's right there. It's on the page. It's right there. See, he's got a nose right there.
Exactly. But, maybe it comes in and out. Who knows? But
they smell evil. I don't know. They breathe off evil. I don't know. I don't know how it works. I mean, there's a lot of interesting things. They're definitely setting up a lot of the world outside. I think they're setting up 4th edition. They've got something planned big for 4th edition, because there is a very interesting line in here between the Green Lady and Brave Chiron, which are two shining ones. Or the Green Lady, don't even get started what she is. She's like a Wicked One, Shining One, and Celestian all in one. It's a confusing thing. But there's a conversation between those two, and she mentions something in the East, which is basically worse than the Wicked Ones, which we don't know what that is. So probably beyond what we can see, something in the East is stirring and something is coming. And they don't want to be fighting with Oscan when this comes. So I found that's the most interesting thing of them dropping that. Now, how other people interpret it is completely up to you. But it does say a gathering storm threatening all of Mantica, and yet beyond her, even her magical sight blocked by some unknown power. So something's happening that we don't know about, we haven't heard about yet.
Now, wasn't part of this in Clash of Kings 2024? There's like a big bad mentioned during the Twilight Kin lore that just hit me while you were talking about that. So I don't have my book at my elbow, but there was something in there. So that I remember. I can't remember. I'm gonna have to go do that. But I didn't know if you know off your top of your head, since you know everything. But
I don't know everything. I've got the book here. I'm reaching for it.
We'll dispel that. I'm gonna go grab mine real quick. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you remember what page it's on? Because I do. I think that I interpret it was a star god. I thought it was a star god. But yeah, you go get your book and we can try and figure this out. And there'll be a jump cut, so the audience won't even know.
Oh no, time will be moving like it does at the bottom of the abyss.
Yeah, exactly. Because in 2024 they did mention, and I don't know if anyone will hear this, but they did mention other factions that we don't know too much about. But it says, I think they're in the East. Yeah. The Twilight Kin established emissaries in the courts of the distant East, studying the mystic knowledge in Exarian and Yamareto. So it's on page number 23 of the 2024. I think it's on page 23.
All right. I can't find mine off the top of the head, so I'm going to follow your lead here. So,
in the farthest reaches of the underworld, they encountered the malignant Murlocs, a breed of bristle.
Right. There's like some really cool new creatures and all sorts of stuff that's mentioned.
Yeah, to the east. So, yeah. Right. It mentions factions. I don't think it mentions a big bad. It mentions several different factions in the east that we don't know about. Like
and new names. Yeah, new names and things like that. Yeah. So they've been building for this for a little bit now.
Yeah, they do. Because I mean, when they do drop a new, and this has been the tradition with 2nd edition and 3rd edition. After they drop a new edition, don't they come up with a new Uncharted Empires, or is it Uncharted Empires?
Well, they've had Uncharted Empires before, but then they wrapped everything into the Big Red Book to try to bring everything together, and then they've been releasing the update for the armies in the Clash of King releases. So we got Twilight Kin last year, and then of course we've got.
But historically, when they drop a new edition, the first supplement book they drop after that is an Uncharted Empires. So it could be the fact that we'll get 4th edition with everything that we know now, and maybe the first book drop is Uncharted Empires 3, the 3rd book, and that will go into all these different factions. Possibly. That's just tinfoil hat, because it's now 2 Clash of Kings in a row that they've mentioned something in the East, which is quite interesting.
And their new names and their race names. And, this kind of flies a little bit into, army consolidation or something. I mean, we've already got 30 factions, right? Roughly. So, I mean, how many more are you going to bring in? But you need to drive the story forward and sell new models and have new cells, So like I heard rumors that the dwarf or like the elves are next to get redone, and it's like, really? I know we need the new elves, but how much is that going to drive sales wise?
Just make jungle elves, and everyone loved jungle. But I mean, I'm not against introducing new factions, because one of the restrictions I had, or one of the frustrations I have with other worlds, is that they get to a point where they're like, we can't do anything else. We can't add in all the other things because of complexity or that, and it's limiting. Like, that's why I never got a halfling army in Warhammer. It's because they're just like, no, we've got too many. We're going to stop right there. And the thing I like about Kings of War is that they brought in these kind of themed armies as well, so they don't have to do the whole shebang. They can introduce a theme army, see how it goes down, get that balance right, and then make them a full-fledged faction. So we could see that, and you typically get that with Uncharted Empires. You get a lot of themed armies which eventually become their own thing over time. So, that's just speculation, but it is interesting that for 2 books in a row, we've mentioned the East, which we know nothing about, and it's indicating something there. And there is a strong possibility we might get 4th edition next year. So it's all kind of lining up to be, and they're setting up the Abyss now that they've put the law there that the Abyss has opened up openings everywhere. They don't need to just say the Abyss is only in this section of Mantic or Penethor, however you want to say it. They now it can be everywhere. So it's interesting to see what they do, and they've deliberately put that law in this book here, and I think this is future-proofing them going forward.
Absolutely. Well, again, it also answers the question: how does this army battle that army? So it answers the age-old question. Yeah,
and also, I mean, there's so many different fantasy armies you can have, and to have a game that just has everything will be interesting to see if it can work. Just on the theory that how many armies can a game have before it's too much.
Exactly.
Let's see. Let's roll the dice.
Well, I mean, the hallmark of Kings of War is that we're the most balanced game. So, but when you're pushing 50 factions or something, that can be a problem. But I have faith, and so far they've done a great job. I mean, as you just mentioned, Games Workshop can't balance that many. So, but I bet that I haven't counted the 40K armies yet, but I think that they've exceeded that for sure. So, but it's a lot of work. So, and I appreciate everybody doing it.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see how this evolves. And I think the lore slowly adding more and more to it. I don't know how if Matt can keep track of everything, and there's going to be so many holes going forward. It's just a question of whether he's managed to plug them or not. It's just the nature of building a world as big as this, is that there's always going to be those little holes, and it's always going to be somebody annoyingly pointing them out.
Well, hopefully Vince Rossbein can help him with that. So, I mean, he had a hand in keeping all the GW lore straight when he was at the Black Library. So, somehow you got to do it. But I've been in Matt's office, so he didn't have a big whiteboard wall with all the drawings on it, like this is going here and that's going there. So, but it'll work out.
I bet you he loves it as well. I mean, that's the kind of thing I would love to do. Like not being the orchestrator, or just being like the manager of the lore, and that piece goes there, that goes there. No, you can't do this because X, Y, Z, and drawing it. That sounds like a really fun thing to get paid to do. So hopefully he enjoys it. Anyway, we'll go back to
the story.
Back to the story. So, the forces of the Abyss are trying to get the shard to get out, so Osgin can get out. Now, the end of the story implies that they failed, at least for now. That they failed. Now, the Trident Realms look like they have the job of protecting these rifts as well. As we said before, the southern part of it, the Trident Realms are looking after it. To the east as well, the Trident Realms are looking after it. So it looks like part of the official lore is the Trident Realms are basically like the Brotherhood. how their job was to protect up there. The Trident Realms are pretty much the underwater brotherhood. They're protecting those openings. But they are treated as a neutral faction as well. I think based off everything here, they probably more on the side of good, maybe more leaning that way. Yes, they probably are pretty savage on the waters because it's theirs. But in terms of like what their main purpose is, it sounds like they're more of a good faction than a neutral faction, just based off this.
Right. But you can see how they kind of go a little neutral, because one of the little stories in there is how they interact with the humans and things like that, because the Abyss goes and whispers in their ears and riles up those easily malleable humans, and the next thing you know, they're out there railing, trying to kick some Trident Realm butt, and of course, humans in the water, we all know how that works.
So to just explain that, so the Lord of Lies, so that's the avatar of Oskin, has been going around and basically distilling hatred towards the Trident Realms. So he's going to all these human settlements and basically saying the Trident Realms are trying to take over things. So now I wasn't too surprised, because Roydina is always influenced by they're just like, they got tricked to attack the halflings. Now they're getting tricked to attack the Trident Realms. They're easily influenced. So if you want to influence any human nation in Panathor, just go to Roydina and just tell them whatever. They'll believe whatever they want. You're all good with that. But yeah, they've been going around distilling hatred. So yeah, I can see what you mean there. But that's really, that wasn't their fault. It's not really their fault on that one. The humans got played again. The humans keep on getting played in this universe. They keep on getting tricked.
Well, as I said, they're the easiest ones to get tricked. So, they're that person at the high school lunch table who falls for everything, So, but
there's a lot of political metaphors I can say right now, but I'm gonna be neutral. I'm gonna stay over this side and not say anything on that side regarding that at all.
No problem. So, but we even had the Abyssal Dwarfs make a little appearance in the story as well. So,
yeah. So the Abyssal Dwarfs were basically the distraction in the east. So, what was his name? His name was start with the Dravak. Dravak.
I say Dravik, but that's just
Dravik. So he caused the Harpy's Rift kind of stuff. So he got defeated there. He's been pretty much brooding ever since. He's lost a lot of respect, and pretty much he's just down in the dumps. And then the Lord of Lies comes to him and tells him, "Hey, I need you to go over to the east, and basically cause a distraction. And here's some Rift Forged orcs for you to help you out with that." So it's interesting to hear the Rift Forged orcs again, and also Roydina in the because what happened in the 2022 Clash of Kings is when the Rift Forged orcs arrived, they pretty much just slaughtered everything and attacked Roydina, and one of the legions went off and attacked the Shires, and two other legions stayed and attacked Roydina. Now, based off what we're seeing here, it looks like Roydina survived that, and so they must have somehow won, or at least the Riftforged orcs kind of like left them alone, and that they continued on, and the Riftforged orcs must have landed somewhere in the world. I don't know if because it's not clear now, so if the Riftforged orcs are just on the surface, or are they in the Abyss and then just get thrown into the mortal rounds when they're needed. I'm not quite sure how it works now, because it's not really explained what happened. All we know is the Riftforged orcs arrived, savaged everything, and then, the halflings bit them. But other than that, we don't actually know. Did they just end up being like orcs and they just kind of spread everywhere? But they're more used as pawns with the wicked ones. But the orcs don't really. They kind of just do their own thing, and they were created by the wicked ones, so they're not like an army that the wicked ones pick up and throw. And they look like the Riftforged orcs are ones they pick up and throw kind of deal, and instruct them in a more kind of direct manner. So, but it's not clear anywhere, but they were used in this to attack the Free Dwarfs in the east and the Trident Realms that are in that side of the map. So it's interesting to the Riftforged orcs. They sound like it's slowly defining them a little bit better, of them being more of an obedient force rather than the orcs, which are just everywhere and just doing their own thing.
Well, that brings up an interesting concept or thought. Is everybody keeps talking about the orcs getting folded into the Riftforged orcs? Maybe it'll be the other way around, and the Riftforged orcs get folded into the orcs, and they're more like the elite strike team, the uber commandos of the orcs, because orcs are everywhere. I mean,
orcs are everywhere, and they're always they are defined in this world. There's not a lot of lore on them. There's not a lot of just what does a society of orcs look like in Panathor, but the Trident realm species, I should say, weren't created by the good guys. They were created by the wicked ones, and then they turned kind of good. They were created by Dark Chiron, and then Brave Chiron has kind of rescued them and kind of made them good. So just because the orcs were created by the wicked ones doesn't necessarily mean they're on the wicked one's side. They're just created by them. Now they are savage and they are, dark, but we don't know enough of them to say, how in control are the wicked ones with the orcs? Can they actually control them, or was this a case of they just made chaos and just let it go, and they have no control over it from that point? Are they just doing their own thing? But the Riftforged orcs are now a refined version of orcs that they can control. So orcs could end up being like a more of a neutral kind of faction eventually, instead of just a pure evil. And the Riftforged ones are evil because they are the wicked ones. So that's actually quite interesting to see which direction, because I don't see them as the same thing. I see orcs as more of like a refined version. So the Riftforged orcs are more refined version of the orcs, because the orcs were created first, and now the Riftforged got infused with all this Harpy's Rift power, that they're just a lot more powerful, but they are a lot more controlled by the wicked ones. So, but again, we don't know. We don't know which way that's going to go. And I find that interesting. So I do understand what people are saying, why they're separate. I think there's a reason why they're separate. And I think the reason we just don't see it yet, because it's slowly evolving to be their own things.
Right. I mean, you could actually make, I guess, the argument, or you could write the story to where the Riftforged orcs are the ones that blink out, because their power is from the Halpi's Rift thing. Halpi's Rift was a campaign a couple of years ago, and that power could just go away, and they could just go away. So, but I have a Riftforged orc army, so please don't make them just go away. But,
mine are behind me. I can't see them, but they're right there. They're right there.
People say that because they're the Mantic specific army, and orcs are generic, but if you think about it, maybe if they merge it, maybe that's interesting.
I think they can evolve, just like free dwarfs and dwarfs. And a lot of people see them as the same thing. They're not. They're different societies. They have different look. I think the one challenge Mantic should have is how do I make them different? How do I make them look different? And I feel like free dwarfs and dwarfs could be very different in terms of their aesthetic if they got the right models to go with them. And I think orcs could be the same thing. There is nothing stopping Mantic from making orcs good. I mean, there's so many species that evolve in this world to be. I mean, with goblins, we've already seen in the novels of different subspecies of goblin, like the underminers. They're very pale. They're very white, underground, and that they eat or ride on worms and stuff like that. So, I mean, there's potential that we could see, because orcs have been around for about 1,000 years, or a very long time. Who's to say that a tribe of orcs didn't go south and they've become wise, and they've become smart and intelligent, because we still haven't seen the smartest giants yet. We know about them. Cyclopses in canon are the smartest giants, but we don't know much about them. We've seen corrupted version of colossi, with the Night Stalkers. We've seen the what do they call it?
Shadow Hulk.
Shadow Hulk, yeah. A Shadow Hulk is a colossi who's been corrupted. But we don't know what's below that. So for all we know, a tribe of orcs could have gone south, found these colossi, and they befriended them. And then there's a really nice, smart orcs down there just breeding and becoming, there's a lot of them. So there's so much potential there.
Well, we do have the good. Yeah, we do have the good undead, right? Jarvis has got the good undead faction, and who knows?
It's not a faction. I got told off for calling it a faction.
Okay.
We're not allowed to call it a faction.
I count it as a full army, so.
I do as well, but I got told off for that because I posted on Facebook, "Is this a faction?" And I got told, I think by Matt Gilbert, that it was not.
Okay.
And there was very definitive that I think they should be its own. I think good undead is such an interesting concept. You see, you kind of, I don't know if you ever played Warcraft. There is kind of like good undead there who are trying to make things right and trying to do the right. And I think there is a really good potential for that to be incorporated on the table. How that works mechanically and with rules and so forth, don't know. But from a concept point of view, it's possible. And there's nothing stopping something like that happening in Panathor.
Right. Well, I mean, and you've also got the neutral undead too, basically. So,
yeah,
I don't see anything wrong.
It's a really good segue to the end of the book. So at the end of the book, there is a short story about the undead, which is a bit out of place. Now, the whole book hasn't mentioned anything about the undead. It's all about the Trident Realms and the Forces of the Abyss. And the last line is Morgoth had returned. So Morgoth was the big bad undead that was essentially one of the first big bads they ever had in Kings of War. It's the first, I believe, the first Mantic journal was called Morgoth's Revenge. So it's quite interesting them having a story about the undead from nowhere. There's no reference anywhere else in the book about the undead, mentioning him returning, and next year being the 15th anniversary of Kings of War, which might mean we could be seeing the undead come back in a 4th edition launch. That's my tinfoil hat.
That's putting on my tinfoil hat. That I have seen the speculation that the 4th edition launch box is going to be undead and dwarfs again, heralding back to the initial release of 1st edition. So,
it makes sense. So why would you put a short story with the final words "Morgoth has returned" in one of the probably the last Clash of Kings books of the 3rd edition run? So I think it's very likely that it's going to be. Whether it's dwarfs or not, I don't know. It would make sense from an anniversary point of view of tying that in, and I think there'll be a nice little way of celebrating. Especially that box set. I've seen it. I would love to have that. I don't know if I will ever see a version of that in real life, but I think that's a really, really good teaser at the end of that book. So I do suggest anyone that is curious, buy the book, buy the 25th book, read it through, read that story, and you tell me whether you think he's going to return or not, because I can't see any reason why they wouldn't. Well, I can't see any other reason why they put the story in.
Right. Well, he already has a model that we got in 1st edition, so maybe that sculpt gets updated with something. But the thing that pokes holes in that theory is that the undead are some of the best models that Mantic has. I mean, are you going to launch your 4th edition with old models?
Well, I mean, there's no reason why they get rid of the old models.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you redo the skeletons and then you don't have the circle bases on them anymore. I mean, and the ghouls, I guess you could do that, but like I said, they're heralded as some of the best models that they have. So that really launched the company too.
I mean, why not have both? What's stopping them?
Nothing.
Yeah,
nothing.
I mean, that's the joys of Meta. I mean, we do all have that perception of what companies normally do. We've got the experience with Games Workshop, how they normally do things. They don't have to do the normal here. They can do whatever they want, and if they want, they could. A lot of people say that they're the best models. How about keep the models and introduce new ones at the same time? Why not?
Ooh. How about this for a theory, Dave? You ready? You're sitting down, so I won't blow you over with this one, but we'll see what you think. Something's coming from the east. Could it be the reformulated big bad Morgoth, and he is, instead of leading the undead, now leading something he discovered in the east, whatever new faction this is, and instead of doing that, he's been reformulated, a brand new version of Morgoth that's coming back. So
well, they did mention there was a faction called the Tessa. It's in the 2024 book.
Correct, right, exactly.
Tessasmo Shogunate, and I think it's Japanese. If I just type it in.
Yeah, to me that was the Eastern influence. So, but
yeah, I think it's Japanese shogun. What does shogun? Yeah, government. Or yeah, I think they're going to have undead vampire samurais. That's my prediction.
Well, there you go. Well, that ties perfectly into Morgoth.
Yeah.
Right.
So Morgoth got his ass kicked. He left to the east, has influenced them, and now we're going to have vampire samurais come charging into the known world of Panathor.
There you go. And they could make a new revised model of Morgoth. And
there you go.
Now, I don't know what the undead list is going to do without him, but, you know.
I mean, he doesn't have to leave the list. I mean, you've seen models be on several different lists, you know. Like Bannock, I think, is on Free Dwarfs and Dwarfs. So, I mean, they don't have to restrict it. I mean, it's a weird debate of like, what should we does what's on the table have to be in lore, what the lore is right now? And there's always been that kind of like yes or no. So like you don't have to always have what's in lore right now, you know, not be on the table. I mean, something that could have died 1,000 years ago, you can still be played on the table. I'm a big believer you should just, you know, be able to do that.
Play and have fun.
Yeah, and if there is, you know, if there's reasons not to put on the table, you know, if there's in tournament rules you can't put on, just state that then. But you know.
Well, the other thing I wanted to bring up from this book that I thought was a big deal was, you know, like the reformulating of the one Trident King at the end, guarding the shard. Yeah. And now we've got these super powerful avatars, that are showing up in Panathor. Are we going to be getting, you know, these big giant battles, you know, you know, between these big giant entities, and how does that work out on the tabletop? And I hope we don't devolve into that. You know, I like my army game, but, you know, the Lord of Lies model is outstanding. So are we getting into an era where each of the armies is going to get a showpiece model like that? And, you know, maybe Morgoth is the one for the new Eastern faction. So
yeah, I mean, it's one of the troubles you have with any.
This is Mike Carter, and you're listening to the Mantic Universe podcast.
Hey, this is Ash Walker
and Zakama13,
and you're listening to the Mantic Universe podcast.
So much universe, so little time.
Trying to keep any kind of fantasy world fresh is sometimes you can't always just keep topping the last thing. Because if you keep on topping the last thing, it's going to get too big, it's going to be too overwhelming, and it doesn't feel real anymore because all those other stories don't matter because they're not serious enough. So they do have to scale it right and not go too big, because I still care about halflings. I mean, they're halflings based off the direction we're going in the East. We're not going to see much halfling stuff. But I still want those stories. I still want to know what's happening in the Shires and what's happening with the Kingdom of Men and the elves that we know. So I think, yes, we are getting a bit of an escalation of, you know, world-ending events, but they have to be careful not to go too big. So I think we are going in that direction, but we also have, hopefully they're smart about it and don't make it too big. Because if it's too big, it gets a bit confusing and a bit overwhelming. So I think we are heading that way, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a little precedent for that, though, because the way that they handled that in Warhammer, you know, Lustria was a long way from, you know, the core old world. So, you know, Panathor is basically that slice of the world that's the most important part for the story. But there are other places on the planet, okay, that, you know, there are armies, obviously, and factions. And again, it comes down to the age-old question. How and why do these armies battle each other? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I mean, they explain that in the other world by there being expeditions and things like that to Lustria. And then they had like those portals or, you know, webway kind of like connections between everything. And of course, chaos was at the top. So they were at the top and could pour down across the globe, so to speak. So they were always in touch. So that's that's, how do you make those connections? So as they're expanding the world, they got to keep that in mind, because that was actually one of the big criticisms. Like, how does this army fight that army?
Yeah,
and then
it's like they almost need alliances to start forming, like some kind of coalition of certain factions that like kind of like they have with the Northern Alliance, how they've got it's a combination of many different races, so that's why they're all in the army. Because we know that the Northern Alliance, which abandoned the Trident Realms, I mean, that's in this book as well. They abandoned the Trident because they asked for help, and then they're like, "No, we're not going to help you guys." So pretty much a bit of a dick move by them. But there is a potential that as the world gets bigger and as we get a bit bigger, that maybe there's alliances that kind of form with different factions. That's how we see them. In the future with battling these big events, is that, the halflings are there because they're a coalition, part of a coalition army with, the Northern Alliance and them and Roydana and Basilia and all them.
Right. Well, that's a really good example. Like Kingdoms of Men, they're everywhere like orcs. Orcs are everywhere. Yeah. I think the undead are everywhere. Elves are pretty much all over the place too. So, how do you write them in? Like halflings. Halflings are in the Shire, basically. So, and they're out a little bit more than that, but that's basically where they're concentrated. So how are they, how and why are they battling people and, getting involved in, foreign wars and things like that. So, but, that's all part of the canon. So.
Yeah, I think they're in Shadow of Horizons, the online campaign they did like last year, I think it was. There was the halflings in there as well, and they didn't really explain why. I mean, there was a world-ending threat, but I mean, they've got their little shire. I mean, they don't really care about something that's happening up north, I think they do need a better job at explaining why these factions would still be involved, and I think that there's an easy way to do it. It's just also have to make sure you spend the time of writing that out and making sure it makes sense. Yes, it's not the most action-heavy topic to write. It's not always going to be, exciting, but it is something that, some people do find interesting. I'm one of those nerds that I find that kind of stuff interesting, of how different factions kind of form alliances and get a common goal to go actually attack an enemy. Like how do you do that in this kind of world? What negotiations would you have to do?
Right. Well, like Trident Realm's easy. I mean, if this is the center of where they're located, and then all the connected waterways should be obviously able to be under the influence of the Trident Realm. Is it just like the capital, so to speak, is here? Yeah. But they influence the waters all over the world. So, I mean, they can pop up and fight anybody. So that's the neat thing about that.
They could go, the Trident Realms could go, hey, we're protecting the Abyss. We're trying to, stop the Abyss from coming out here. We will protect all your ships on the water if you guys help us. So that could be like how the other factions kind of unite and like, all right, well, we need our trade. We need our money. Let's just side with them so we can get like protection on the waters. So basically they turn into the mafia, but it's interesting. And I do think they are setting themselves up for some interesting stories going forward. And I wonder which direction they'll go. I think they will, 4th edition will be definitely undead. It's just a question of what kind of undead we're going to get, because necromancy was created by the Wicked Ones. So it's not something that, if we see us seeing undead to the east, it means the Wicked Ones' influence is also over there too. So that's interesting as well.
But that now makes sense with the lore that has been established in this Clash of Kings book with these little micro rents opening up everywhere. So that opened that wide open. So
so I think the future proofing and getting ready. So we should be expecting something quite interesting. And I do hope there's a lot of novels to back up, because I think there's so many good things in those books that I really wish Clash of Kings touched on as well. So I do hope in the future we see a lot more synergy between what's written in the books, as you can see up there. That this is not going to work on audio, but Mark will be able to say, how do I point? There we go. That's all my books over there. yeah, a lot more synergy of the novels and what's showing on the tables. I mean, I was really disappointed to not see some of the battles actually being able to giving us the ability to reenact some of these battles, because that would have been cool. Like the battle of the Coral Gate, that would have been cool to kind of play out. But biggest can't be choosers, gun deal.
There you go. Well, it's a little something for us to work on, Dave. So, but yeah, that should be fun. It does open the gateway for them, to do stuff like that. So,
yeah,
very cool.
And there are a few things that did confuse me. So there is the Herald of Deceit and the Herald of Lies, which I think is the same person, because they mention the Herald of Deceit and then call them the Herald of Lies later on. That's Carl Zarman, which is, we're now saying it out loud sounds like an actual person, but he's an arch fiend who keeps on attacking the Pond Warden over and over again. So that they now have heralds as well. So heralds are just arch fiends going around everywhere.
Right. When I read that, I kind of thought they were separate and they were part of the group. And then that's where the first inkling for me of oh man, are we going to get these big, giant, super powerful dudes floating all over the place, with Oskin's axe and everything else? That they're way too important to be fighting on my tabletop. So, but
yeah.
I mean, this is just a 2,300 point battle. What are they down there worried about that for? But I guess that argument can go down to Morgoth too. It's like, well, why are you here? But
yeah, exactly. But there was a typo that the Herald of Lies and the Herald of Deceit is the same person, but they accidentally call them the Herald of Lies once, and that threw me off. It's actually part of one of the short stories about the Herald of Deceit and what was his name? Anuran, the Pond Warden. I think there's a typo there. So I think the Herald of Deceit is what he's actually called, and there must be other heralds as well. So they haven't really dived into more heralds, but that's something to look forward to. So we're going to be seeing more heralds going, like Herald of Lies, Heralds of Deceit, Heralds of something. I don't know what's worse, lies or deceit. Deceit would be worse, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're trickier. So, I mean, that's how they were influencing the humans, right? So,
yeah, true.
They were deceiving them and going after the Trident realm. So, but again, well, we've had Valandor in the stories before and stuff like that too. So, yeah, it's just interesting. It's like, are they going to stay in the realm of story? But we have that beautiful Lord of Lies model, So
yeah. It's
really spectacular. So I mean, that's where my tinfoil hat goes. So
I mean, it's also showing that. So the Lord of Lies. This is not the first time the Lord of Lies has been in the game, by the way. So he was in second edition. It just never had a model. So Lord of Lies was in second edition, went away, and then came back now. It also shows that every Shining One or Wicked One has like an avatar or a manifestation of themselves. So Baal, B-A.
Yes, yeah, Baal.
Yeah, Baal.
I say, yeah.
His one is called the manifestation of Baal. And so every Shining One could have a model like what we're seeing with the Lord of Lies, that we could actually see more of the Wicked Ones and Shining Ones, avatars or manifestations. So it also opens that door that we might see more of that on the field. It'll be cool to see. I don't know if the Shining Ones ever actually go into battle. They'll kind of just always give their avatar or the kind of their image or something like that. I don't think they actually ever appear on the battle properly.
Right. I mean, as a projection that, is just like obviously like a weaker version of yourself. Because I thought at the end of the one part of the story that he had to use a portal stone to get out of there. Yeah.
But basically, the Trident King went all Gallifreyan and regenerated, and then dragged him up, and then the other two Trident Kings arrived, gave the reinforcement, basically lost, and then he kind of smoke bombed out of there. Yeah. He just went all Batman and went, nah, I'm out of here. And then basically says if he survives Oskin's kind of rage, which sounds like he will, because like all he needs to do is like, oh look, I'm out of the abyss, you can't touch me. No. I think he's going to be fine. And I think they're going to keep on coming back, but it looks like that shard in the deep is the only thing stopping Oskin from returning, and I think that's going to be a plot point going forward.
They know where it is now. It was lost forever, but now they know where it is. So do they keep going at it? Do they move it? What's the plan here? So
Harpy's Rift exposed it and told them where it was. So it'll be interesting to see. And the one thing I would like for them to explain going forward is what's stopping the Wicked Ones from leaving. So obviously they're trying to get this axe to escape. So did the Shining Ones do something to stop them from leaving? Like, have they jailed them? So what is it, like a magical barrier? Is it, what's actually stopping? Is it a big artifact that's stopping them from leaving? And that would be interesting to be explained, of like what's actually stopping the Wicked Ones from getting out of the abyss.
For me, the axe is that key. So, it created the rift, right? So if they reunite it and they, somehow get that shard back into the axe or something, maybe that, they cut and rent the earth to put them in. Maybe they use that to get back out again. That's my thoughts. So. Yeah,
it'd be interesting to like have that explained, of like, yes, the reason why they're stuck in there is because of this. The reason why they can't get out is because of this. And then that makes sense. But at least now there's a bit of more of a motivation to the forces of the abyss as well. So now we know what they're trying to achieve. They're trying to get out. The Wicked Ones are creating all these abominations and attacking the mortal world because ultimately they're just trying to get out of the abyss. And part of getting out of the abyss is getting this last shard to the Trident Realms. So now I would say the Trident Realms is the number one enemy of the forces of the abyss now.
Well, they're almost like the number one. To me, a little bit, this book put them in the place of Basileia. Okay? Basileia has been like the people that have been holding the line. They saved the Brother Mark. They're close to the rift, in the abyss, and, the abyssal dwarfs and all that. But, now the Trident Realm, the oceans are covering the face of the planet. Okay? Now these little rifts are opening up all over the place. And now you really don't have any limit on where those things can show up, the way that it's written. So are they now the force that's going to be trying, the Brother Mark and stuff like that was just this little, faction along the rift that got overrun, and that, now it is if the Trident Realms that are trying to hold it back. So
I mean, before it felt like they were against the Basileans just because they're part of the Shining Ones, right? They're on the Shining Ones side. There wasn't really like a motivation of them attacking, other than the fact of like they're our mortal enemies, like they're the opposite of us, literally. But now it's kind of shifted away from this, like the forces of the abyss don't need to worry about them. They could just, like, who cares about the Basileans? Our main priority is getting that shard and attacking the Trident Realm. So that's going to occupy them for a while at least. So while whatever's going to happen in the East, whatever's going to happen in the East got nothing to do with the forces for now. And the Trident Realms and the forces are just going to keep fighting. They will leave them alone over there. And everyone else is going to be dealing with whatever's coming to the East, which will be interesting. But who knows what they'll be, whether it's vampire, samurai, undead, whether it's hobgoblins on birds, which is the faction that I secretly want. Who knows?
There you go. Well, the one thing is, with the expansion a little bit and with the creation of the new lore, anything's almost possible at this point.
Yeah.
Literally, that I think this book really opens, and the last book, I think, really opened up the possibilities of what's going on. So
I think the last book was more of a tease, but this literally, one of the Shining Ones are saying there is something over there. And I think that's where it's a little bit different. Like, the last book is like hinting at it. This one blatantly says there's something there. So that's now, I would say, confirmation of something happening in the East.
Right. Well, as you mentioned, I think it would be a really good opening for 4th edition to launch from a lore perspective. I think they really have a nice job. Yeah, it would be cute to, put out the Undead and Dwarf as, a feel-good moment for celebrating 15 years and blah, blah, blah. But, launching with some new factions and a new battle, at least one new faction from the East battling something else, would be nice. It'd be nice to get, which army do you refresh for that, so you can do the launch. So they mentioned the Abyss card.
Yeah, in this book, they do mention the free dwarfs being over there. I did notice they specifically said the free dwarfs were fighting with the Riftforged orcs with that distraction over there. So we could see, this is all tinfoil kind of hypothetical, don't actually think it's going to happen, but I'm going to say it anyway. We could see undead and free dwarfs. So you could revitalize at least the range for the free dwarf specifically. So you have a dwarven range and a free dwarf range. And then we'll also may get also undead samurais. I really want undead samurais. I don't know.
I understand that, but see, Dave, listen to what you just did. We've got more so far. You and I have got Morgoth coming from the East, reformulated with undead vampire samurais, and we've got brand new free dwarf models, because then you can say that the current dwarf models are all imperial, and you can come out with your free dwarf range. And what box set did you just get? An homage to first edition, Undead versus the Dwarfs.
Exactly. So there we go, Mantic. We'll wait for the check in the mail on that one.
There you go, Matt. We worked it all out for you.
Yeah, and Roddy would like. He loves dwarfs. I don't know his I've never heard his opinion on dwarfs versus free dwarfs, but I do know that in canon, his rum is free dwarf. So the actual cat where the I think rabbits run or something like that. Give me a second. Rum. Sorry, I'm just gonna Google it. Sorry.
That's all right. I'm making a note for Fred. Hi, Fred.
So here's Rest is where the rum is made in the game, because I know he gives out the rum, and it's a free dwarf location. So I think he's gone to Infinity. You could tie that in as well. But yeah, there you go. I think it would be really cool if they did that based off this book alone. I think we really went down a rabbit hole in that one. I think it's a good rabbit hole.
I don't know, Dave. I'm going to give you some more backup for this theory here. What was the last novel released by Wing Tassar? Who were the superheroes of that book?
Yeah, the Free Dwarfs.
Yeah, the Free Dwarfs. That's right.
And keep in mind, Ben is only book one into a trilogy. So Pride of a King is the first book of two more coming up. But I don't know. Everything's pointing that direction. But I could and honestly, I don't think they're going to go in that direction. I would love for them to go in that direction. I think that will give a lot of buzz if they were to do that. Like they drop 4th edition with free dwarfs and vampire samurais. Moneymaker right there.
Well, there you go. And you could have Morgoth, and then people keep talking about getting a more named character for the free dwarf, so we could throw him in the box too, or be available separately, and then there you go. I mean, this could and the free dwarfs could be maybe expanding or something and run into the guys in the East or something. I mean, there's a lot of fertile ground here. So
well, I mean, someone has to hold the line. So I mean, the free dwarfs are already over there. They're over there because they got kicked out of where they were in Harpy Mountains, so that they have settled. They could be already there having settlements, and they're just defending the line from this wave of undead that's coming, because and that throws back, because I believe the first edition were actually technically free dwarfs as well, but they just weren't called free dwarfs at the time.
Interesting. My recollection is they've always been there wasn't really a distinction between free dwarfs and imperial dwarfs in my mind.
No,
and they were just dwarfs. But
yeah, I think on the map though, where the battle is the invasion under Ice Mountains, technically Thoric Rockfist was a free dwarf, but they weren't a free, at the time when the box set was released, they were just dwarfs, but technically he was a free dwarf. That
was in his heart, Dave. He didn't quite get to that point yet. How about that?
Well, I mean, the free dwarfs were founded in the year 3000, so they had they've existed for based on where the canon is right now, 800 years.
Okay.
So the battle that the battle of the first box set takes place in 3001 when he was already a free dwarf. So technically, even though on the table he was a dwarf, in the lore he was a free dwarf, but he wasn't called a free dwarf at the time because they hadn't really fleshed out that concept. So there we go. They kind of adds. I know we've gone really down a rabbit hole, but
we have. We've been having a blast today. So
yeah. So the first battle was between free dwarfs and the undead, but they were just called dwarfs and undead at the time.
Very, very good. Wow. Well, dear listener, I hope you've been enjoying this tinfoil hat adventure with Dave and myself. So it's been a lot of fun bringing this to you. And Dave, we're going to do more of these.
Yeah, I'm all, and I think just throw it out there. If anyone's got any questions of a topic or anything you want to just go, because this is probably what's going to happen. People are going to put out there what you want us to talk about. We'll start talking about it, and then it will just go everywhere about it. It will be all over the show, and we'll just be talking about everything about it, all the lore. So if you got anything in particular you want to talk about, let us know, and we'll just start talking about it and see what happens.
Absolutely. Well, that's the one thing about the Mantic lore, okay? Because it's not written over 30 years, and it's just like, pigeonholed from all the novels. You've got all this what could be type of thing. It's like, we're not at the very beginning, but this seems still a little bit like when we were at the very beginning and we didn't have our novels at all, and we were sitting talking about a lot of this stuff. And, it's nice to see it building. I mean, you're watching it be created, which is really cool.
There is so much potential, and there is not a lot of limitations as well. There's a lot of potential and not a lot of limitations, which is exciting for a world like this. When I first started Warhammer, I always wanted a halfling army, and I got excited. There were halfling models, I think, in Warhammer, but I never got a halfling army. And then finally, I get one in Kings of War, and now I'm seeing all these opportunities that other people there's so many people out there that wanted a certain race or a certain army that's never been able to fulfill that. And I think Kings of War is open to fulfill a lot of people's kind of dreams when it comes to that.
All right. Well, Dave, I think we've kind of left a nice teaser for everybody, giving them lots to think about. And hopefully this is a good primer for when you open that Clash of Kings book and you start reading, and you can add your own thoughts to the discussion. So we'll carry that on over at the MUP Facebook page. So if anybody wants to start a thread over there, we can certainly talk about it.
Yeah, and you got any comments, flick it through. Maybe we'll read them out in the next episode of why I'm wrong. Like, this is why Dave's wrong, and then we'll go through it. And that would be a bit of fun for us. And there's no, the point of this is everyone's got different opinions and different things. So feel free to discuss and, have fun.
There you go. All right. So reach out to us on the Facebook page if you've got any questions or anything like that. And, great. And, well, dear listener, until next time, take care.
See ya.